Yeah, so I can do it on here also. Um, yeah, so I guess this is just discussion or questions and answers that we're doing here. So whatever you'd like to ask about what to expect in the workshop, or whatever you'd like to ask.
Sure. Why do people need special knowledge to come to this timeline healing course? Do people need special knowledge?
The answer is generally no. I always ask the question a little differently. I say, do you have to be psychic? And the answer is no. Do you have to be intuitive? And the answer is yes. The good news is we're all intuitive. We've all used our intuition, and you will be using your intuition more and more as you get more involved in timeline healing. And you'll use your clairvoyance. A lot of people say, oh, but I'm not clairvoyant. I don't know how to visualize, or I don't know how to get information psychically. But almost everyone who goes through the training gets an experience of being psychic, being clairvoyant, seeing past lives. Typically, most people will end up having some visual, auditory, or kinesthetic experience, or all three, of past lives. Not everybody is visual. Some people are more feeling oriented. Some people are more auditory. And so you may feel the presence of your past lives. You may feel the presence of spirit guides. Other people might actually see images of a past life or a place where they've been in some other time frame or dimension. And still other people will hear messages from their past selves or from spirit guides. And so you don't have to be psychic to be a timeline healer. It's helpful if you've developed those abilities, but it's not necessary. And we kind of go into that in more depth in the training, why it's not necessary, and how to have a powerful healing experience, even if you think you don't visualize. A lot of people don't think that they know how to visualize. I can kind of prove them wrong with a few little techniques that we all do visualize, but maybe it's some people don't feel like they can spontaneously form an image in their mind. If I said, think about a blue elephant, probably some people would immediately see a bright neon blue elephant floating in the ethers or in their living room or someplace. And other people would say, well, I don't know how to see a blue elephant. I'm trying to see it, but I can't quite get it to show up in my inner vision. And but if you were to look at an object and then close your eyes but pretend you're still looking at it, let's say this sport bottle, for example, that I have here, it has wording on it on the side of the bottle. And if you were to look at it and then close your eyes and imagine you're still looking at it, and then I said to you, what does it say on the side of the body? You'd be able to tell me, even if you're a so-called non-visual person. Oh, yeah, that's right. It says this. That's photographic memory. That's not clairvoyance, but it works the same way when it comes to visualizing. So,
perfect. Thank you so much for giving this answer. Many people have been asking me, do I need special knowledge? Do I need to be psychic? Yes, that's right. The second most popular question. So yes, thank you for answering these two questions. What about what blocks? And people, the third most popular question is, how can it help me? So what can I get from this course?
And in some ways, maybe that should be the most important question, because it is called timeline healing for a reason. Emphasis on the word healing. And if it doesn't have healing benefits, then it's not of much use to anybody.
Right.
So, my experience, my honest experience from having worked with thousands of people, there have been numerous people who have come to me and said that their experience was that it was more powerful than years of psychotherapy. Sometimes one session was more powerful than months of psychotherapy. That doesn't mean that psychotherapy doesn't have its place. Of course it does. But a lot of people find that they just kind of scratch the surface with psychotherapy, or it takes a very long time, week after week, thousands of dollars later. Maybe they've made some progress on some personality problems. But timeline healing, the very first session, sometimes there's a lot of times there's major breakthroughs in a pattern that they just couldn't seem to get a handle on. It's like, oh, my phobias. Phobias are a wonderful example. Timeline healing it kind of specializes in phobias, although it's good for just about anything. People ask the question, is there anything it's not good for? And the answer is no, it's good for just about everything, but sometimes you have to do other things first. If somebody's suicidal, you may need to refer them to a suicide prevention specialist before you work with them using timeline healing, for example, unless you are already a specialist, and then you might be able to blend suicide prevention techniques with timeline healing. The two are very complementary. So depression is another example. It's helped a lot of people who are in depression. It helps with health, of course. That's one of the biggest applications. When people have health problems, 80% approximately of all major health problems are emotionally based. Or I should say emotional slash stress based. I consider stress to be an emotional issue pretty much, because it's usually based on a belief system that we're not good enough, and so we have to stress ourselves out trying to do more and more and more in life in order to prove our worthiness. That's where a lot of stress is. Or I'm afraid of losing my job, so I need my employer's approval, so I have to work super hard at my job because I'm afraid of losing my job or whatever. That's emotional stress. So it works great for helping people who are have these core negative beliefs. In my teachings, I talk a lot about core negative beliefs.
Amazing.
I'm not good enough is the most popular one.
You were just reading me. You're scanning, because I was just gonna ask you about. I'm just gonna ask you about this most popular negative belief that people have about themselves. I'm not good enough, and will they be able to at least partially step into their power, into their worthiness from birth, by birthright, after the course, or do they need to take more and more?
Timeline healing works on any time period, and one of the most powerful is birth. A lot of people get their unworthiness at birth. Maybe they weren't wanted, or they wanted a boy and you were a girl, or the parents were in a lot of fear when you were born, and your first experience of the world is, oh, this is a fearful place, because the parents are in fear or the doctors are in fear. Maybe there's a complication. And so a lot of times we go back to birth in timeline healing and do some work on the trauma that occurred at birth. So yeah, there's really nothing that I'm aware of that cannot be healed with timeline healing.
Wow.
It doesn't mean everything will be healed, but it's capable of being healed. Anything is capable of being healed.
I just wanted to confirm your words about the technique that I took the first course with Yolanta, and I have been working in Akashic Records. I am teaching Akashic Records course, and I did so many sessions, and time and healing is really similar, but not at the same time. So, and I know hypnotherapy as well. So I thought, maybe I shouldn't go, because I know hypnotherapy, regression, Akashic Records, why would I go there? But truly, it gave me more tools and I don't regret at all. And now we are hosting this for other people that are in such a big need for changes. They can't help themselves. I tell them, please come to at least, I also do like group healings, and this is going to be a group healing, timeline healing group in SF Bay Area. Group healings work much more powerful, right? Because we create, how does it work?
There's advantages to one-on-one and there's advantages to groups. And we do a group timeline healing in the training, and you'll actually get to pair up with each other as well and do practice with each other. So you'll get both group and individual training in the course. And like I said, you know, a lot of people come in and they think, oh, I don't know how to visualize, I'm not psychic, you know, this and that. And by the end of the course, they're pleasantly surprised. I would say 90% of people. And being that this is going to be in Silicon Valley area, I have to mention that engineers often have the hardest time functioning clairvoyantly and psychically because they have this mind that has to figure everything out. And that can be an impediment. I'll say it right out. It's a little harder for engineers to have the same results as some of the people whose minds are thinking in a little simpler lines. But I've had numerous engineers who have functioned psychically, who've gotten amazing healings from this program. So if you're an engineer and you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I can get through my heavy intellect, well, I'm going to just flat out say it may be more difficult for you than it would be for, say, an artist or somebody. But
we'll be there to
results, even with engineers.
Yeah, I've worked with many engineers actually, and they were drawn in the first place. They were drawn to this, to all this esoterics and healing, new age knowledge, and that's amazing. What about? Thank you so much. It covers a lot of things that people ask me. So, would you call it energy healing, or what techniques?
Yes, well, everything is really energy healing. But to put it in a spiritual perspective, there's only one thing in creation which actually heals, and that's God's love. So the actual healing is done by God's love, and the technique is more or less a support system for that. All healing techniques are a support system for God's love. It's a way of dealing with the mind, especially, and specifically the subconscious mind. This technique is born out of the Silva method, past life regression, hypnotherapy, theta healing, past life regression. There were a total of 5 techniques that are kind of similar in some way to this technique. And then, of course, just guided meditation, visualization, forgiveness work. There's a little bit of a lot of things that are kind of incorporated into the technique. The technique itself was brought to me by my spirit guides. And so it's...
Is that right?
The Arcturians, yes. And... but it does incorporate, especially the Silva method. Some of you who are watching this are familiar with the Silva method. It was quite popular in the Bay Area. That's where I took it. I took it in San Jose back in 1976, 77. Wow. And I still use some of the what we call safety statements that are from the Silva method. The closest technique would be hypnotherapy, but we don't have the same structure as hypnotherapy, but there are similarities in the structure.
Yes, I can confirm. Okay, thank you. What else would would it be interesting to know? Why more and more people are attracted to healing, to before people were in their rut, you know, they were always busy. Now they want to slow down, and and work on themselves
It's
more
the
and more.
time we're living in. A lot of people are starting to realize that traditional techniques are not enough. Traditional psychotherapy, while it's helped a lot of people, hasn't gone far enough. It hasn't gone deep enough. It's not esoteric enough. It doesn't cover everything. For example, people who attract negative people into their lives, maybe you can get a little bit of help there with psychotherapy, but it doesn't really address the astral or etheric or causal issues, which are what I call the subtle bodies. So it covers more than just the physical, emotional, and mental bodies. But healing in general, we're living in a very chaotic, turbulent time when a lot of the things which seemed to work in the past don't seem to work anymore because things have changed. The energies have changed. The religious people call the time we're living in apocalypse, and the word apocalypse means the revealing of all that has been hidden, and or the lifting of the veil is another way to say it, and it means that what's buried deep in our subconscious mind is coming up to be healed, whether we like it or not. It's almost like something has stirred the pot, and all the stuff at the bottom is coming to the top. And that's purification and cleansing are the popular words for that. But a lot of people are scared. They think, oh my God, what's happening? I have all these feelings I didn't know I had. All of a sudden, my whole life seems to be upended. It's topsy-turvy. And nothing seems to work anymore that I used to do. What's going on? So there's a lot of people that are drawn to healing. This COVID thing, that was a huge wake-up call. It's like, wait a minute, what's really going on here? Why are so many people getting sick? Disease means we're out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
So what parts of my life are out of balance that I'm becoming sick, and then there's several other big important lessons there too. Like a lot of people blindly believe that doctors have all the answers. And after seeing the problems associated with COVID, it's obvious that, just because a person's wearing a white coat and has a degree and a certificate on their wall doesn't mean they fully understand the human immune system, for example. And so a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, traditional medicine has not given me what I really wanted. And so I'm going to start looking at alternatives, holistic healing, timeline healing. I'm going to look for deeper solutions that allopathic medicine has been unable to give me. But a lot of people are saying this right now after being through COVID, and maybe they've got 3 or 4 vaccinations and they're still getting sick. Well, the vaccines didn't do the trick. Maybe there's something I'm missing here.
That's right. That's interesting. Yeah, about vaccination, it's a whole different theme.
Mm-hmm.
And the politicians can't tell you nowadays anything that is true either.
It's all about this blindly believing in authority, whether it's the priests, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the doctors, whether it's the media, whoever the authorities are. There's a very painful lesson here. It's painful for a lot of people. And it's that there's really only one authority, and it's God, and that authority lives within us. So it's about going within. It's about realizing that, yes, of course, people outside of us may be able to help. They may help point us in the right direction. Have you considered doing this? What about this? But the answers are ultimately within. And so this is a huge lesson in going within.
Perfect. Thank you. God's love and your own authority, right?
You got it. Those are the keys to healing. And we are powerful, creative, spiritual beings. That's my favorite affirmation. I am a powerful, creative, spiritual being, because it covers everything in just a few words. And it's easy to prove.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to prove that. Because if you believe you're powerless, guess what? You'll experience being powerless.
That's right. Yeah. Also, yeah, wherever your attention goes, yeah, right? Focus and energy, that's what you're feeding, right? And
What you focus
oh,
on, you
oh,
become, is one of my favorite quotes.
perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Also, Sal, could you share about higher self, what it is? Because we work with higher self during timeline healing technique. I explain my students, but how do you personally explain higher self to
Well,
others?
one of the ways I explain it is by answering one of the questions that's one of those ultimate questions. How do you tell the difference between higher self and lower self, or in the spirit and ego are the words that most people use? How do you tell the difference between higher spiritual awareness and ego personality awareness? And it's very simple. No, I didn't say easy, I said simple. Higher self lives life from the inside out. I am a powerful, creative, spiritual being. The kingdom of God is within me, and my desire is to share that in a way that lifts humanity. That's higher self. Ego lives life from the outside in. It's constantly trying to get things from the outer world because it believes it's lacking. So it's seeking approval and, reassurance, security, safety, all of these kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying that some of those things are unnecessary in this world, but the emphasis on being an incomplete, needy person that needs approval and love from outside, that's ego. And ultimately, that's going to bring sorrow and suffering because nobody can ever possibly meet 100% of our perceived ego needs. You've noticed that when you're in ego, you're never satisfied. I mean, look at these billionaires who need more and more billions. They have enough money to take care of themselves for thousands of years, but they need more and more and more. They're never satisfied. And that's ego because they still feel like this emptiness inside. Why do they feel empty? Because they're trying to look for the answers outside of themselves. They're not going to the source within. They've forgotten that they're connected to the source within. They believe in separation. And so the belief in separation is the cause of all misery and suffering.
That's right. That's right. And even when I was practicing, when I practiced before, I had bigger ego, and I totally saw this, and I just asked God, please rid me of this huge ego that's in me. And you know what happened next? I was crying for help because it really was in the way, because it created some internal, not very good, conditions for me. I was really like not very high vibrational. And what happened right after I asked for it, that was like a miracle. I went into like complete samadhi for several days. And I was like, really? Is this even real? I saw myself like I was walking out of the cage, even though I was aware of all the structures, matrix, and all of that. But they showed me how I walked out of the cage, and I was part of one big universe or ocean. Like I was one drop in a huge ocean. I was that drop, and at the same time, I was the ocean. That was so deep, and it was beautiful. All I needed to do just cry for help. Just ask God.
Well, sometimes we have to let go of our arrogance and just be more like a humble child and say, okay, let me discover how the universe works and let me lay aside all my preconceptions, most of which are not correct. It's the thing about science. I come from a scientific background, and true science is about humbly just exploring and investigating how the universe works. But the problem is we get all these preconceived ideas. We're arrogant. We think we know all the answers. And and then there's the bought and paid for science that's not real science. I call it pseudoscience, where if it doesn't match what the corporate overlords say it should be, then we reject it. You know, things like cures for cancer, it would be a whole area to use as an example, you know, where it's the height of arrogance to think that you have to use chemotherapy and radiation and things like that to treat cancer. And it's time to go back to the humbleness of and then look at the holistic approach. It's like, oh, if these things are not curing cancer, it's because we haven't gone deep enough. We haven't explored deep enough into how the universe works, how the physical body works. You know, so just because they've got those white lab coats on and a stethoscope doesn't mean that they have all the answers. You know.
That's right. Thank you so much for laying this all down for us. I would like to ask you two last questions, if possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you held any events in the Bay Area previously, or have you tried? Or
yes, actually, several years ago in Los Gatos, we did a workshop. I can't remember if it was just channeling or what we did. And I have the recordings from that, from some of the channelings we did. And then seems to me I did, well, I lived in the Bay Area back in the 80s for quite a while. And I was involved in some groups. There was a thing called Alpha Theta Programming, which I was presenting at the time. It never really took off. I shortly after I started doing it, I became involved in rebirthing, Leonard Orr's technique, and spent a lot of time up at his hot springs in the Sierra Mountains. And then I moved to Arizona in the 90s and started a bunch of other. That's when I started channeling spirit guides, and timeline healing came to me around the year 2010. Maybe it was sooner. I have to look and see when it first came to me.
So it just came to you. It just came to you. You weren't thinking. You weren't trying to put together a technique. Just came to you.
Pretty much, yeah. It just kind of came to me. It evolved over time. And I'm not sure how many graduates we have now. It's in the thousands. And we've started training teachers now.
So in order to become a teacher, how many levels of the timeline healing course?
You have to go through all 3 levels and then repeat the first level. And that's to teach level 1. And we will be having teachers for level 2 very soon as well.
Perfect. It's good to know for whoever wants to continue this.
And Yolanta is one of the first teachers. So
that's amazing. That's great. I had to experience Yolanta's warm and loving energy. It was beautiful experience. And regarding, may I ask you one more question? Me and Jan, we were talking about possibly having a retreat with you in Mount Shasta. Around Mount Shasta, maybe. And she said that you know Mount Shasta very, very well. Is that true? And would you be willing?
I've probably been there 2 or 3 dozen times for different reasons. When I was a kid, I used to go back and forth a lot between Oregon and California. So I used to go by the mountain every time on the way to Oregon or the way back from Oregon. And you know, and I've had some beautiful experiences on the side of the mountain. I was part of a retreat up there back in the 80s. A bunch of people, you know, camped on the side of the mountain, and we had some amazing experiences up there. Yeah. And my Russian organizer wanted to organize a group in Mount Shasta, and that was right before COVID and then the war and stuff. So I've been thinking about doing a retreat up there for a while. Some of the Russians may be able to get out of Russia and come to it. I don't know. But it would be a good thing to do. Probably we're going to wait till the year 2024 to pull that off. But
yeah, great idea. I see it for 2024, and we could join forces and come all together. That would be beautiful, beautiful event and retreat. Okay, so what are the last words you would like to tell people that are searching for solution and to heal their traumas and negative beliefs, and they just really
Well, I think that you should give timeline healing a try if that matches who you are. That maybe you've tried Reiki and reconnection and acupressure and these are all great techniques, by the way, and they're all compatible with timeline healing. But maybe you're looking for something that goes deeper. It's not like psychoanalysis where you pick apart and re-experience all these traumas, but it's much deeper than faith healing where you just turn everything over to God, but you don't really have the deep understanding of what's happened at a deeper level within you. And this training gives you that deeper understanding. It's like it answers the why as well as the how and the what. So I encourage you to try it out, and I'm looking
Yes.
forward to having a wonderful group on the 27th, 28th, and 29th.
10 days. So yes, we are waiting for you. If you're still deciding, take a leap of faith and come join us on January 27th in 10 days at Happy Signs Temple, which is a beautiful temple inside. It's a special energy. It will, all that we're going to do is going to be amplified by this energy. And it's a bright space. We're going to do this timeline healing technique, work on ourselves, learn a lot of, learn wisdom from Sal, and do some networking. We're gonna have a lot of insights and fun. Thank you so much, Sal, for joining us today. Thank you.
Many blessings to you, and look forward to being a part of this.
Us too. You can't even imagine. There are people already saying, "Oh, I know, we met with Sal. He was, you know, I can feel deep resonance, deep connection." It's beautiful.
Wonderful.
Looking forward to you. We'll see you very, very soon.
All right.
Have a wonderful